I'm Briana, and this is Backyard Bugs, a show where I go around the Calgary and surrounding area and help people learn about the bugs in their very own backyards. So together, we're going to learn where we can find bugs, what kind of tools we can use to find bugs, and we're going to learn all about the bugs that we find. Before we start exploring backyards, I think it's really important that all together we learn a little bit about bugs in general. So, what even is a bug? Or how do we classify bugs or put them into categories or boxes? This first episode is going to be all about that kind of stuff, so follow along as we learn about bugs together. What is a bug? A bug can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. Usually people picture some typical animals, like maybe a butterfly or a ladybug, or maybe even a spider, but not all of those things fit every definition of what a bug is. So let's explore together what makes a bug. First of all, we need to learn that there's different levels of classifying organisms, so we can group them all together with things that are similar to them. So one big umbrella that almost everything that you might think of as a bug fits under is the phylum of Arthropoda. So these are called arthropods, and they pretty much all have hard exoskeletons and jointed legs, so they can bend their legs kind of at the elbow. Underneath that big umbrella of arthropods, we have more specific categories that we call classes. So one of these classes is insects. And you probably have learned in school at some point in your life what an insect is. It has 3 body parts, 6 legs, antennae, and probably wings. So lots of things fit under the category of insects, right? This is where we have butterflies, beetles, ants, bees and wasps, all that kind of stuff. But something like a spider doesn't have the right number of body parts, doesn't have the right number of legs. So that's a different class of organisms that's not an insect. But a lot of people would still consider these things bugs. If you are a really specific bug scientist called an entomologist, you might think of a bug as being a specific kind of insect. So underneath the umbrella of insect, now we can go into what's called an order. And these are bugs that are very similar. So for example, beetles are an order called Coleoptera. Ants, wasps, and bees are an order called Hymenoptera, and there's an order called Hemiptera, which are true bugs. All of the Hemiptera have kind of a shield-shaped body, a little bit flat. If you think of a stink bug or a leaf bug, that's a Hemiptera, and they have this sucking mouth part. So that's another definition of a bug. But no matter which definition you're using, we can find some bugs in our backyards. When we're searching for bugs and learning about bugs, it's important to understand that most insects go through a really big life change called metamorphosis. So when we find an insect, they could be at different stages of their life and look completely different than if we found that same insect just in a different stage. So for example, caterpillars become adult butterflies through the process of metamorphosis. So they start as an egg, they hatch into that caterpillar, which is their larval stage. They then go into their pupal stage, where the caterpillar is in that chrysalis. It's completely transforming the way that its body shape is, the way that it looks. And it finally emerges as an adult, where it's able to lay eggs and reproduce and start that whole cycle over again. But the caterpillar and the adult butterfly might look completely different. As I said, most insects go through metamorphosis, not just caterpillars and butterflies. So you could find a larva of a beetle that just looks like a big, fat, juicy worm or grub. You could find fly larvae, which are called maggots, that are also kind of white and worm-like. And they're going to be completely different than the adult form of that insect. When we're searching for and finding bugs, it's also really important that we respect them. So these are living organisms, they're animals, and we share our space with them, and we have a responsibility to not harm them on purpose. So when we're finding bugs, when we're collecting them, we need to be very careful, very gentle, and understand that these are living things that deserve our respect. Some insects can harm us, so we don't want to pick up anything in our hands, especially if we don't know what it is, because it might bite or sting us, and that can be very painful or even really dangerous. Bugs can be a little bit of a controversial topic. A lot of people are not big fans of bugs, but unfortunately for them, bugs are everywhere. So insects are actually one of the most diverse and abundant things on our planet. And they're an animal. So if you consider yourself an animal lover, but you're not including insects in that, you're not including most animals on our planet. In fact, just one order of insects, the Coleoptera or the beetles, is the most diverse group of animals on the planet. It's estimated that approximately 1 in 4 species that exist on our planet are beetles. That's absolutely crazy. Plus, we keep finding new ones. So within the insects and the arthropods of the world, there's so much to be discovered and so much that we haven't even learned yet.
Hi, my name's Justine Dahl. I am currently a master's student at the U of C, and I study plants and pollinators. And I met Briana through my community science work. I led a bunch of pollinator plant walks in the summer of 2023, and we all just had a great time looking for bugs in parks all over Calgary. We got to meet a whole bunch of cool people, and I've used all of these pictures of bugs that all the community scientists that came for the walks we uploaded them onto iNaturalist, and I used all that data for my thesis, which I'm looking at the impacts of urbanization on plant-pollinator interactions within Calgary.
Cool. Lots of people are like, I don't like bugs. So what would you say, or how would you encourage people to maybe, or even if they have a fear of bugs, to like help themselves get over that, or start moving towards appreciating or seeing more different kinds of bugs?
Yeah, that's a big thing too, because I definitely I still have moments where I'm like, ooh, creepy crawly. Like, especially like spiders.
Yeah, I always say to people, like, I love bugs.
Yeah.
I don't love when they're on me unexpectedly.
Yeah.
It freaks me out.
Yeah. It's not, I love all bugs. I try to,
Yeah.
because I appreciate their role in ecology and in the environment. But I think just like seeing, like, it's hard to, you're like taught to be like, a bug, I'm scared.
Yeah.
But if you think of like little kids, they don't have that. They're picking up worms and puddles, and they're, picking up all these bugs, and it's like the adults in their life that are like, oh, like don't touch the bugs, they're yucky. So just having more exposure to them and just kind of reminding yourself like, oh, if this is a bug that's not going to hurt me, like sting me or bite me, or, then it's like a little bit more okay, and you're like, oh, it's just a little guy.
Yeah.
If you see it, it's like, oh, look at that little guy.
It's just a little,
just a little guy.
Just take that little pause of like, oh, the bug, and then be like,
Yeah.
oh, the bug.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I like read this concept about like just like nature, like plant blindness, where like when I walk down a path, I'm like, I know what this plant is, I can call it by name, and I know what each one is, because that's like a very special interest of mine.
Right.
And I love it. But before I got into it, I would just walk and it would just be green.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with bugs, right? If you don't really know how cool and how diverse insects are, like it's hard to appreciate them.
Totally.
So not a lot of people know about it, and if you don't know about it, like that's not a fault of your own by any means. It's just we don't learn about a lot of that.
Well,
so,
it's not really valued, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like nobody, like you learn a little bit in like 3rd grade.
yeah, the
Insect
difference between
life
like
cycles.
a beetle and a fly and a butterfly.
Today we are in my backyard and I'm going to be teaching you a little bit about different ways that we can look for bugs, whether you're in your backyard or a park near your house or just any space that has a few kinds of plants or maybe some dirt. There's going to be bugs there, and I want you to know different ways that you can find those bugs, capture those bugs, look at those bugs, and then safely let those bugs go once you've learned all about them. The first tool that I want to show you that we can use for catching bugs is one most people have probably seen before, and that is our trusty net. Now there's a few different kinds of nets that you might see. Some of them have long handles, some of them have bigger nets or longer nets. What you're looking for is really any kind of net that you think is going to be easy for you to use and not have too big of holes to capture the kind of bugs you're trying to capture. So if you really want to look at really tiny bugs, you don't want a net with really big holes. With our net, we can use it in a few different ways. One way is to catch flying bugs like butterflies. To catch them in the air is really tricky, but you can do it. So you want to sweep your net, trying to capture something that's flying. Once it's in your net, you want to flip it really quick. And you can see that's going to fold your net over, trapping whatever was flying around inside of your net. That's really tricky though. An easier way to trap bugs that are flying is to come over top of them and trap them against the ground. So you can take your net, you see a bug, maybe it's landed on the grass or it's flying close to the ground, you're going to go like this. Once the bug is underneath your net, you're going to come on over and make a little witch's hat. And then you can pinch together the bottom, capturing that bug inside of your net. And you can have a nice close look at the butterfly or the fly or whoever it was. Another way that we can use our net that might catch some bugs that aren't necessarily flying in the air is by using it as a sweep net. So for this, you want to find a little bit of greenery of plants. It could be some tall grass, it could be a shrub, it could even be a tall tree if it's taller than you. You're just going to take your net and really gently, so you don't damage the plants, you're going to sweep your net back and forth, touching the plants with your net. So it looks like this. Once you've done a few good sweeps, you might want to flip your net to trap those bugs inside of it. And you can have a look like this to see who's in there. Or if you think, I don't think they're going to fly away, you could keep it open and look down like this. Another tool that I like to use when catching bugs is super simple. It's basically anything that you can find that is a light color. So it could be yellow, white, cream, any sort of light color like that. And it can be a variety of different things. So I have some yellow bowls here that work really great. You could even just use a piece of white paper, or you could use a pillowcase or a sheet or a blanket or something like that. And for this, you're just going to take your light colored object, whatever it is, you're going to find some plants, some greenery, whether it's a tree or a shrub or some flowers. You're going to take your object, place it underneath of those things, and then really gently shake that little bit of greenery. Give it a little tap, give it a little shake, and then you're going to have a look. And you'll see all kinds of bugs that gently got knocked out of whatever little bit of greenery you were shaking. Some other tools that we can use for catching bugs are just little containers like this. Now this one is a special bug catching container, but you can use anything really. A jar from your kitchen, an old yogurt container. This is just going to help you gather up a bug inside of it so that you can have a closer look. So this, you're just going to take it over to wherever you saw a bug, and you're going to very gently, maybe using your finger or you could use a paintbrush, try and get that bug into your little container. Then you can have a look, and when you're all done, you can let that bug go. Now, sometimes when you're out looking for bugs, maybe you don't want to catch them at all. You just want to find them and look at them. And there's some great tools for doing that. I think most people probably recognize one of these. Maybe you've got a little smaller one, but they do the same thing, right? These are magnifying glasses. They just help make really tiny stuff a little bit easier to see. So you can take these around with you when you're looking at all of the flowers, looking in the dirt, looking on the leaves, and when you find a bug, you don't even have to catch it. You can just get a really close-up look at it with your magnifying glass. Okay, so we caught some bugs, but now we want to know what kind of bugs, or what can I learn about these bugs? So the other thing that I want to show you are just some great resources for helping you learn about bugs. First of all, we have just these super simple, we call them twitchers, but it's basically a pamphlet, a brochure that you can get from a lot of outdoor stores. Sometimes you can get them at museums or science centers or places like that in the gift shop. And it will just tell you about some different bugs or some different critters in your area. And then of course, we got the internet. Sometimes that can be a lot of information out there too. So when you are looking for bugs on the internet, I highly recommend searching for where you are in addition to some of the features of your bug. So for example, if you caught an orange butterfly with black spots, search orange butterfly, black spots, Calgary, Alberta, and that's going to help narrow it down because there's lots of orange butterflies with black spots out there, but not all of them live in Calgary, Alberta. Another great resource if you're using the internet to look up bugs that you found is iNaturalist. So this is something you can download as an app on your phone, or you can use it on the computer, and all you do is upload a photo of whatever it was that you saw, that bug. You want to try and get a nice clear photo of it, nice and close up. Then you're going to put it on there with a little bit of information like where you found it, what time of day it was, what time of year it was, and you're just going to submit it to iNaturalist. And then there's all these experts out there that are sorting through all those photos of all these different things, and they might find your photo and go, oh, I know what bug that is, and they will tag it with the proper species, the proper genus, what kind of insect it is, and you will get a notification. You can go back and see, oh, look, the scientist told me this is a certain kind of butterfly or a certain kind of beetle. So that's a really fun thing that you can use. iNaturalist also has another program called Seek, and that one's kind of like a game where you actually collect as many different things as you can. Same idea, you just have to take a picture of it. You don't have to know what it is, and it's going to automatically try and ID it for you. If it can't, it's going to put it on iNaturalist, and then it's going to go through that same process where somebody else that maybe knows a little bit more about that kind of bug can help you identify it. When it comes to looking for bugs, you can search in your backyard, you can search in a park, you can search in really any space that's outside or even sometimes inside your house, but you probably don't want to look at those bugs. But what kind of habitats do you think you want to look for bugs in?
Hi, so I'm here with Tobin, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Tobin Neem. I use they, them pronouns, and I study bugs, and I have for a very long time.
Awesome. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the bugs that you study or have studied?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out kind of looking at butterflies, and by that I mean when I was 6, I started, and I was fascinated by them, and there's this really great book for butterflies in Alberta, and so they were easily identifiable, and I loved them. And then that very quickly turned into love for bees and wasps and anything that I could find. So in my undergrad, I wrote a book about bumblebees and how to identify them and where to find them in Calgary. And then in my master's, I started studying carabid beetles, so ground beetles, which are predatory and they work in crops to pests and things. And I was looking at kind of what they're doing in the ecosystem, which was fun. So lots of different bugs.
Yeah, a nice spread of diversity of bugs. Do you have any tips for people that want to find bugs?
Yeah, just go outside. Spend as much time as you can outside. The other thing is to kind of train your eye. You call it like search images or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The more you look at bugs, the more you're going to find them.
Right. It's like a little AI algorithm inside
Exactly.
your head.
I mean, we based AI off of how our brains work. Our brains are kind of the original. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, just like the more time you spend with them, the more bugs you're gonna find. But also like looking in kind of areas that you might not expect. So, flipping rocks is kind of the big one, right? But you can also, look under tree bark, look like at night, set up lamps at night. You'll find so many cool things. Yeah.
So you can find bugs almost anywhere. There's going to be different kind of bugs that you'll find if you're looking in a spot with lots of grass versus if you're looking in a place where there's lots of shrubs and trees and things with leaves. Same with if you go somewhere where there's lots of beautiful flowers. You're going to find different bugs there. And if you start digging in the dirt or moving away some of the leaves and bark and things like that on the ground, that's another place that you're going to find a whole different kind of ecosystem full of different bugs. So when you're looking for bugs, it can be really helpful to think, where would I like to live if I was a bug? Where would I find a place that has food for me, that has shelter, where I'm going to be safe, that I can access water, and I'm going to have all of my basic needs? And looking in those places, that's going to help you find a huge variety of bugs, so you get to see all the cool stuff that's out there. One more thing I do want to mention when we're catching bugs is that some bugs can hurt you. Some of them can bite, some of them can sting, so you want to be careful. And it's best not to touch any of the bugs with your hands if you're not sure about them. There's lots of bugs that have black and yellow stripes that can sting you. But there's also lots of bugs that look like that can't sting you. They just want you to think that they can. But if you're unsure, like I said, best to be extra safe and don't try to catch or handle those bugs. Once you've caught a bug and you've identified it, you've maybe taken some pictures of it so that you could identify it later, and you're done looking at your bug, you want to make sure you put that bug back in a similar place to where you found it. Right? We are all about learning about bugs, seeing how cool bugs are, respecting bugs, and that means we want to be gentle with those bugs and put them back when we're done. So I have a little harvest mint in here, and I'm going to let it go because I'm all done looking at this harvest mint.